Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've got just a massive amount of source material here. Articles, interviews, deep research.
Yep, a huge stack.
And we're going to boil it all down for you, give you the absolute must-know insight.
Gets you right up to speed.
Today, we are looking at a career that is, well, it's a perfect, really fascinating case study in artistic pivot and escalating commitment.
Right.
We are diving into the world of Adam McKay. You know, the writer, director, producer, the guy who somehow connects the dots between pure chaos like Anchorman and Step Brothers.
Yeah, total absurdity.
And then these urgent systemic critiques like The Big Short and Don't Look Up. It's quite a jump.
It really is. But I'd say it's more than just a pivot. You know, it feels more like a strategic use, almost weaponizing comedy, maybe.
Weaponizing comedy. Interesting way to put it.
Well, using storytelling to confront these really complex, really urgent societal failures.
Yeah.
Our sources, they cover everything. His, scrappy improv beginnings in Chicago.
Doing it the early days.
His time running Saturday Night Live, that whole decade defining mainstream comedy. And then this recent, almost, desperate dive into climate activism. It's all in there.
So our mission for you, the listener, is to really pull out the core insights. How did the guy who gave us, I'm in a glass case of emotion.
The classic line.
How did that guy become one of the most decorated political critics in modern Hollywood? We're going to structure this deep dive logically, sort of phase by phase through his career.
Makes sense.
Moving from those purely chaotic, foundational years up to the strategically critical films that really define his present urgency. Okay, let's unpack this journey.
You know, what's truly fascinating here, and I think it's what connects these parts of his career that seem so different, it's the consistency of his core voice. He's always been kind of anti-establishment, hasn't he? Always interested in, tearing down institutions.
That's a good point. The target's just changed.
Exactly. The difference is he swapped out the ridiculous kind of easy targets like, overly privileged stepbrothers.
Right. For the really dangerous ones, Wall Street greed, political corruption, climate denial. Much bigger fish to fry.
Okay, so to really get the later work, we've got to start at the beginning, the foundation, which for any great satirist, it seems, is always rooted in that crucible of live comedy and their deep personal history.
Absolutely.
McKay, born in Denver, Colorado, April 1968. But his formative years, they were pretty mobile. He spent time in Worcester, Massachusetts, and later Malvern, Pennsylvania.
In that early life, it paints a picture. Constant observation, maybe driven by a bit of instability.
How so?
Well, we know his mother was a waitress, father a musician, parents divorced when he was only 7.
Ah, okay.
That kind of early fracturing, It often forces a kid to become this really quick, maybe cynical observer of social dynamics.
Like who's got the power, who's struggling.
Exactly, and who's just putting on a performance. You learn to read people fast.
And his education that seems to reflect that restless energy too, maybe a bit rebellious.
Seems like it. He did Penn State for just 1 year.
Only a year. Yeah, then transferred to Temple University in Philly. Intention was to major in English, but then you get one of those classic writer dropout stories. He left the place just a semester and a half short of getting his bachelor's degree.
So close. Why leave then?
Well, he didn't really mince words about it later. He described it as settling with an imaginary degree.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
That act itself, refusing that final step of institutional validation, it's so telling, I think.
How so?
It suggests maybe a belief that the real-world education he was getting, especially in that booming Chicago comedy scene,
right, the improv stuff,
was infinitely more valuable than, a piece of paper.
And that's where the real training happened, wasn't it? Chicago. Like so many comedic giants from the late 90s, the 2000s, he studied and performed at those legendary spots.
The Second City and Improv Olympic. Yeah. That scene is where you build those fast, sharp, satirical muscles. You learn to pivot instantly based on what the audience gives you.
And it's probably important for you listening to distinguish between those two big influences there, right?
Yeah, definitely. Improv Olympic, which was co-founded by the legendary Del Close, focused heavily on long-form narrative structure. The Herald, specifically.
Right.
It emphasized deep, grounded character work, narrative coherence. And that training, you can see it later, it helped McKay ground even his most absurd films, like Step Brothers, in believable, even if totally ridiculous, emotional relationships.
Okay, so Improv Olympic is character and structure. What about Second City?
Second City, where he moved on to the main stage eventually, that was more geared toward topical sketch comedy.
Ah, like SNL prep.
Kind of, yeah. That's where he learned to dissect current events, turn them into immediate pointed satire. So you have this tension, right, between the character-driven reality from Improv Olympic and the topical critique from Second City. That tension becomes the engine, really, for his later films.
And he wasn't just in that scene, he was central. A founding member of the Upright Citizens Brigade, UCB.
Legendary group. Alongside Matt Besser, Amy Poehler, Ian Roberts. I mean, that's an incredible legacy right there. And specifically at Second City, he was performing on the main stage in the 80th Review. It was called Piñata Full of Bees.
Great title.
Isn't it? And he was alongside people like Rachel Dratch and John Glazer. So he was immersed, truly immersed, in this high-level, ensemble-driven storytelling world that valued quick thinking and, crucially, sharp political observation.
Which, naturally, led him straight to Saturday Night Live.
The next logical step.
His SNL tenure ran 95 to 2001. But the path wasn't totally straightforward, apparently. We found he actually auditioned first to be an on-screen performer.
Oh, really? A cast member?
Yeah, and didn't get it. It was unsuccessful.
You know, that happens a lot with the best structural minds in comedy, I think.
How do you mean?
They might not have that pure, performative flair needed for a live show every week.
Right.
But they had the sharpest minds for comedic architecture, building the sketch, finding the game. So his submitted scripts built on those analytical skills he honed in Chicago.
Those got him the job.
Exactly. Hired as a writer in '95, and he moved up fast. Became head writer by age 28.
Wow, only 3 years in.
Yeah, held that position until '99. Pretty rapid rise.
And he was already mentoring, building that next generation. He encouraged his friend from Second City, Tina Fey,
Another legend.
to submit her own scripts, and she eventually succeeded him as head writer.
That lineage, McKay handing the torch to Fey, that's just critical to the history of modern TV satire. You can draw a straight line.
Definitely. But even though he was primarily a writer, he wasn't totally invisible on camera.
No. He made recurring appearances, often playing the smaller roles needed in a sketch, the straight man or whatever. But the bit of trivia, the piece that most perfectly foreshadows his whole future career, it's his recurring character, Keith.
Keith the heckler, I remember that.
Yes, the notoriously obnoxious audience member.
He would sit in the audience, interrupt the celebrity host during the monologue.
Injecting uncomfortable meta commentary or just aggressively silly stuff.
It's total disruption.
Exactly. He was literally the anti-establishment voice yelling disruptive, often true, uncomfortable things from, the cheap seats.
That's a great way to put it.
That character is the perfect comedic precursor to his later film voice, which literally heckles the audience by breaking the fourth wall, demanding you pay attention to complex truths.
It's the same energy.
Yeah.
And then the ultimate commitment to the bit. His final 2 years, he requested and got this unique, totally made-up credit.
Oh, yeah. What was it?
Coordinator of Falconry.
Coordinator of Falconry.
Yep. Completely honorific.
That is perfect. It perfectly encapsulates that early absurdist phase, right? Totally chaotic, entirely meaningless, but performed with total deadpan commitment.
Exactly.
And that commitment to the gag, even when the gag is acknowledging the absurdity of the system itself.
Yeah.
That's what he carries forward into the next big phase.
Right. And that blend, the perfect mix of grounded character work and just committed chaos, it immediately translated into this empire, really, that defined the sounds of 2000s comedy.
Oh, absolutely.
Shortly after leaving SNL in 2001, he teams up with his longtime collaborator friend, Will Ferrell.
The dream team.
And they formed Gary Sanchez Productions. This was the launchpad for that iconic phase.
And this partnership, it created a very specific brand of comedy, didn't it? The high status idiot.
Wes. Yeah, that's it.
The guy who's supremely confident but just completely lacks self-awareness. McKay co-wrote and directed the films that basically codified this. You know the list. Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy in '04.
Stay classy.
Talladega Nights. The Ballad of Ricky Bobby in '06.
If you ain't first, you're last.
Step Brothers in '08.
So much room for activities.
And The Other Guys in 2010. That run was huge.
These weren't just hit movies. They were cultural touchdowns. Anchorman, for example.
Yeah.
It's built on this foundation of historical absurdity, the hyper-masculine, clueless 70s news anchor.
Right. The premise is funny.
But its real success, it hinged on McKay's ability to create this improvisational environment on set, right?
That's the crucial link back to his UCB and Improv Olympic training, absolutely. His shooting method, It involved letting the actors, who were all trained improvisers, that's key,
Right, they knew the drill.
letting them generate multiple alternate lines, different scene endings. They'd often end up with like 80 hours of footage for a 90-minute film.
80 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This organic kind of non-linear approach to finding the jokes, it created that really dense, quotable absurdity, but always paired with hyper-specific comedic details. It wasn't just random.
And think about Talladega Nights. Ricky Bobby. That character embodies this specific strain of, like, American anti-intellectual entitlement. If you're not first, you're last.
Total chaos, yeah. But it's also a critique, isn't it, of celebrity culture, unchecked American ambition. There's something under the surface.
For sure. And that chaotic spirit, it wasn't just in the features. The Gary Sanchez umbrella, they co-produced hit series, too, like Eastbound and Down on HBO.
Oh, yeah, Kenny Powers. The
Crap.
quintessential McKay Ferrell character, right? Another oblivious entitled Genius Idiot.
Exactly. And McKay even directed an episode, so he kept his hand in that serialized format.
Right.
And their reach went beyond just traditional film studios. They jumped headfirst into the whole new media landscape pretty early on.
Funny or Die, 2007.
Right, co-founded with Ferrell.
And Funny or Die, you have to remember, it became the definitive user-submitted comedy video site during that early internet boom. It was immediately disruptive.
How so?
Well, it bypassed the traditional gatekeepers, right? Allowed for immediate, often politically sharp, highly absurd comedy to just go viral within hours, and often featuring huge A-list stars doing stuff they never do in a studio film.
Yeah, the barrier to entry was suddenly gone.
Mm-hmm.
And it was incredibly personal, too. He used his own family.
That's right. He featured his young daughter, Pearl, in 2 really early viral videos that became like cornerstones of the site. The Landlord.
Oh, my God, The Landlord, with Ferrell as the angry baby landlord demanding rent.
Yeah, and Good Cop, Baby Cop.
That decision alone, using his own kid in a viral comedy video, playing against a massive star like Ferrell.
Yeah.
It shows total commitment to the medium, doesn't it?
Absolutely. He was pioneering the use of personalized, highly accessible content to just deliver a joke. And that technique, you can argue, he later adapts when he uses celebrities to deliver complex financial explanations in The Big Short. It's the same principle, different context.
That's a really interesting connection. Now, what often gets overlooked in this Gary Sanchez era is that while he was known for directing these huge comedies,
Right, that was the headline.
his production portfolio was actually pretty vast, and he was getting his hands dirty in other genres, other writing rooms.
Absolutely. The Marvel connection is significant, more than people realize. He rewrote the script for Marvel Studios' Ant-Man back in 2015.
Right after Edgar Wright left.
Yeah, and he helped flesh out the story for Ant-Man and the Wasp, too. He was actually in talks to direct Ant-Man himself.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, but he ultimately stepped aside. He cited respect for Edgar Wright's original vision as the reason, which I think is an important data point. It shows a certain professional integrity, maybe, self-awareness about when to lead and when to support someone else's thing.
Okay, so this era was about building massive creative muscle, financial muscle too, through a whole range of produced films. Not just the Ferrell ones, Land of the Lost, The Campaign.
Which he co-wrote the story for, The Campaign.
Right, and Daddy's Home. He was basically acquiring the capital, the clout, everything he needed for his next, much more ambitious phase.
But, you know, even the best partnerships, they eventually reach a breaking point. And the Gary Sanchez era, it ended pretty dramatically.
Yeah, that was big news. April 2019, McKay and Ferrell announced they're separating as producing partners.
Though they kept working on existing projects, the partnership itself was done.
And the reason that eventually came out, it's famously illustrative, isn't it? That tension between, like, artistic ambition and personal friendship.
Oh, yeah. The breakup happened over casting for the HBO series Winning Time, The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty.
Yeah, Lakers show, right.
McKay cast John C. Reilly as Jerry Buss, the Lakers owner. Now, the sources confirm this was a role Ferrell had explicitly wanted.
Ouch.
And critically, McKay did this without telling Ferrell beforehand.
Wow. That's a huge breach, creatively and professionally.
Yeah. Choosing your own vision for this massive prestige project over a decades-long partnership.
And then not even communicating the decision to your closest collaborator. That's rough.
It is. And McKay went on to direct the pilot episode of that show, The Swan. So this whole incident, it really solidified his transition, didn't it? His focus was now completely on prestige, high-stakes storytelling, usually centered on institutional power. The Ferrell partnership didn't fit that anymore.
Yeah.
So the end of that partnership, it really felt like the clean break he needed. And the shift is immediate. It's laser-focused.
Yeah, no looking back.
Following the split, McKay founds his new company in 2019, Hyperobject Industries.
Hyperobject Industries. The name itself tells you something, right?
Totally. It references Timothy Morton's philosophical concept of things so massively distributed in time and space. Think global warming, financial markets.
Things you can't really grasp easily.
Exactly. Things that defy simple human comprehension. That name tells you exactly what his new focus is going to be. The big, messy, systemic stuff.
And Hyperobject immediately lands these high-level deals, signaling his new place in the Hollywood hierarchy.
Oh, yeah. A first-look overall TV deal with HBO that covered the Lakers show.
Right.
And later, moving to a really lucrative multi-year first-look movie deal with Apple, he basically leveraged all that comedy clout he built into pure prestige access.
He played the game well.
But the real breakthrough moment, the proof that this whole pivot wasn't just talk, that it was successful, that was The Big Short back in 2015.
Right. That felt like it came out of nowhere for a lot of people.
It did. And this wasn't just him making a serious film. It felt like a re-engineering of his entire comedic toolbox, but now for analytical purposes. He adapted the Michael Lewis nonfiction book about the incredibly complex financial collapse of 2008.
And the industry, they were kind of forced to recognize their shift, weren't they?
Totally. He didn't just get nominated. He won the Academy Award, a BAFTA, and a Critics' Choice Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. Shared it with Charles Randolph.
Plus a Best Director nomination.
Yeah. It was complete institutional validation of this new phase. Like, okay, we see you. This is legit.
But the genius of The Big Short, it wasn't just the subject matter, right? It was the style. That's the key takeaway for you, the listener.
Exactly. He needed a mechanism to process this overwhelming information for the audience. So what did he do? He imported the techniques he perfected in his comedies.
Like what?
That rapid-fire, almost anxiety-inducing pacing, the non-sequitur cutaways, the improvisational energy. He applied all of that to complex economic theory.
Let's dig into that technique a bit more. He really established his signature style there, that informational, fourth-wall-breaking political satire. The film constantly stops itself.
Yeah, breaks the flow.
Acknowledges you, the audience, and then uses these celebrity cameos to deliver straight-up explanations.
Yeah, think about those choices. Margot Robbie in a bubble bath explaining credit default swaps.
Or Selena Gomez at a blackjack table defining synthetic CDOs.
Why do that? Because, as he explained in interviews afterwards, the audience needed to be assured that the complexity wasn't their fault, it was intentional complexity built into the system.
And they needed breaks.
And they needed immediate, enjoyable breaks. It was humor as a Trojan horse, basically. Distract the audience just long enough with a celebrity and a joke.
To sneak in this devastating lesson about predatory lending, and total systemic failure.
It's brilliant, really.
It really is the highest evolution of Keith the Heckler, isn't it?
Yeah.
But instead of heckling the host,
he's heckling the financial system, constantly interrupting the narrative to say, wait, look how absurd and rigged this actually is. Pay attention.
So effective. And he immediately followed that success in 2018 with Vice.
Right, a biographical black comedy about former U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
His rise to power. Christian Bale starring.
So if The Big Short was about systemic failure in finance,
Vice was about systemic corruption in government. It established his brand, the director tackling the hyperobject of American power itself.
And Vice also got massive awards attention. 8 nominations at the Oscars.
Including McKay's second nomination for Best Director and Best Picture. Pretty huge.
And again, we saw his ability to direct these truly transformative, dramatic performances. Christian Bale, Sam Rockwell, Amy Adams, all got nominations for that film.
Yeah, he clearly knows how to work with actors on that level now. But the film was also pretty politically contentious. That's important to note for a balanced view.
Right. It wasn't universally loved.
No. While many praised the direction, the performances, critics from both the left and the right questioned the film's narrative framing, specifically its focus on Cheney as this kind of singular supervillain.
Rather than maybe a symptom of a deeper political issue.
Exactly, a deeper political malaise. And crucially, McKay himself later acknowledged a failing there.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he admitted significant regret about the film's political focus. He actually said he effed up by not assigning more blame to the Democrats who supported the Iraq War.
Wow, that's quite an admission.
He said he read the reviews and admitted they were fair, which, that moment, I think it's key to understanding his trajectory.
How so?
He didn't just dismiss the critique, he absorbed it. He seemed to realize that if his goal was truly systemic critique, he couldn't pull punches or simplify the blame onto one party or one person.
So that self-correction, that informed what came next.
directly informs the heightened, urgent, and kind of all-encompassing critique you find in his next major project.
Which brings us to 2021 in Don't Look Up.
Right. Arguably his most direct statement yet. Moving from analyzing historical corruption to tackling an ongoing existential crisis.
It was a satirical black comedy. Two low-level scientists trying to warn this media-distracted, politically cynical world about a catastrophic comet heading for Earth.
A thinly veiled allegory, let's be honest.
Very thinly veiled. High-stakes allegory for the climate crisis.
And the casting was clearly a strategic move. A mobilization of massive star power to guarantee maximum audience reach. Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, Meryl Streep, Cate Blanchett, I mean, the list goes on.
The sheer celebrity density was part of the mechanism to deliver that urgent message.
Absolutely. It got 4 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture again, won the WGA Award for Best Original Screenplay with David Sirota. So critically, it landed.
But this film, maybe more than The Big Short or Vice, it drew criticism for being too broad, maybe, too obvious, too didactic, some said.
Yeah, that was definitely a common critique.
Like, was he sacrificing the sharp nuance of The Big Short for the, I don't know, blunt force trauma of his urgent message?
And that's the tension he seems to be wrestling with right now, isn't it? The balance between art and activism, the comedic style is still there, the fast editing, the cutting away to media absurdity.
Right, the toolkit is the same.
But the target is so huge, the literal fate of the planet, that many felt the satire didn't need to work as hard. The message was the main thing. He seemed to be prioritizing urgency and clarity over maybe a more subtle, multi-layered critique.
And we can see that urgency really defining his most recent choices, especially regarding projects that didn't happen.
Right. He was all set to direct Jennifer Lawrence again in Bad Blood, the Elizabeth Holmes Theranos story.
Which sounds like a perfect McKay project. Another huge institutional collapse. Fits right in his wheelhouse.
Totally. But the project stalled. Lawrence left, apparently citing she didn't want to copy Amanda Seyfried's performance in The Dropout, which was highly praised.
Understandable, maybe.
So the status of Bad Blood is kind of unknown. But the next decision illuminates everything.
What was that?
Early 2023, his next big project gets announced. Average height, average build. A political satire about a serial killer who uses political lobbying to make it easier for him to commit his crimes.
Wow, that sounds dark and topical.
Yeah. Netflix acquired it. Massive cast lined up. Robert Pattinson, Amy Adams, Robert Downey Jr. I mean, this looked like a surefire hit. Dark comedy, star power, political commentary.
Checks all the boxes.
But then, December 2023, news breaks. McKay had abruptly walked away from the project.
He walked away from that.
Yep, and Netflix subsequently scrapped it. The reason, according to all our sources, he chose to pursue a film focused exclusively on the climate crisis.
Exclusively climate.
Feeling the need to address that subject with more immediacy, more documentation than even a fictional satire like Average Height could allow.
That decision.
Wow.
That really is the ultimate encapsulation of his trajectory, isn't it?
Absolutely. He abandoned a guaranteed commercial, star-studded, multi-million-dollar project
to dedicate himself fully to the most immediate political crisis. It's like the heckler decided the stakes are just too high now for jokes about anything else.
So when you look at the evolution of his film choices, it's just impossible not to see it mirroring this deepening, increasingly public political identity he's formed.
They seem completely intertwined now.
Yeah, the sheer scale and complexity of the topics in The Big Short and Vice, they weren't just career moves. They felt like catalysts for his own profound political shift.
Our sources paint a pretty clear picture of his, standard liberal stances initially. Supports gun control, abortion rights, that kind of thing.
Just baseline stuff.
But his critiques, like we saw with Vice, they became deeply anti-establishment and not really partisan in the traditional sense.
Right. He's been notably critical, for example, of former President Bill Clinton, called him one of the worst presidents in the modern age.
Really? Why specifically?
Criticizing him specifically for deregulating banks back in the 90s, which, laid the groundwork for the structural rot The Big Short documented later.
Connecting the dots.
And also criticizing Clinton's personal life in light of the Me Too movement. So it shows this interest in systemic accountability that goes beyond simple party loyalty.
And this intense desire for systemic change, it led to a pretty clear self-identification later on.
Yeah, he identifies as a democratic socialist, joined the Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA, back in 2019.
And for you listening, it's probably vital to understand what that means in this context.
Definitely. The DSA advocates for really radical changes to the economic and political structure, way beyond mainstream Democratic Party politics.
So him joining the DSA, it's like a formal declaration that he views the fundamental American system capitalism, the two-party structure, as the hyperobject that needs dismantling.
Pretty much. And he was a very dedicated supporter of Bernie Sanders for president in both 2016 and 2020.
And that desire to work outside the mainstream, that seems to be evolving even now. He recently announced he'd be leaving the Democratic Party entirely after the 2024 election.
Yeah, stating he would register Green Party or maybe Working Families Party.
Which just further confirms his belief that the kind of reforms he thinks are necessary require a third-party approach, something outside the current structure.
And this aligns perfectly with his wider activism, too. He serves on the Creative Council of Represent Us.
What's Represent?
It's a nonpartisan anti-corruption organization. They advocate for specific structural changes, things like ranked choice voting, anti-gerrymandering laws stuff, aimed at increasing political competition and reducing the influence of big money in politics. It's all about changing the system's rules.
Makes sense. And beyond just domestic politics, he's gotten involved in some pretty intense international activism, too, using his platform for some controversial stances.
Yeah, definitely wading into difficult waters. In October 2023, he signed that Artists for Ceasefire open letter regarding the Israeli bombardment of Gaza.
They got a lot of attention.
It did. And then, in what feels like a more long-term structural commitment, in September 2025, he signed an open pledge with film workers for Palestine.
What did that pledge entail?
Vowing not to work with Israeli film institutions that are implicated, in their words, in genocide and apartheid against the Palestinian people. These actions, they reflect an increasing willingness to engage in really high-stakes political debate, potentially risking professional relationships for these activist causes.
But what's truly defining this current phase, and probably why he scrapped that Netflix film, it's climate urgency.
Climate is number one now, clearly.
And his activism there isn't just, writing scripts or signing letters. He put serious money behind it. In 2022, he donated $4 million to the Climate Emergency Fund.
$4 million? That's significant.
And joined their board of directors. He's also donated to Just Stop Oil.
And these aren't subtle endorsements, right? The Climate Emergency Fund specifically finances disruptive climate activism, civil disobedience, direct action stuff.
So McKay isn't just funding political campaigns anymore. He's funding direct confrontational action against the very structures he critiques in his films.
He's putting his money where his mouth is, basically.
And to channel that urgency creatively, he founded Yellow Dock Studios in 2023, a nonprofit company.
This feels like a crucial development. Yellow Dock Studios is designed specifically to produce videos, campaigns focused on raising awareness and mobilizing action on the climate emergency.
And specifically tackling misinformation from the oil industry, right?
Exactly. Fighting the counter-narrative. And the output from Yellow Dot, it's very different from his feature films.
How so?
It's often shorter form, more documentary-focused, designed for social media, quick dissemination. It's almost a return, in a way, to the viral efficiency of Funny or Die.
But with a life or death message this time.
Precisely. It shows him actively blending that comedic marketing expertise he has with his activist financing, a new synthesis.
He's also been really open about the personal cost of this intense focus, hasn't he? Talking about his own struggles with climate anxiety.
Yeah, the psychological toll.
And the crucial role that comedy and humor still play for him in managing that fear. He sees humor as necessary, not to distract, but to provide maybe the distance needed to process something truly terrifying without just shutting down completely.
Which is remarkable, especially considering that someone known for such physically chaotic comedy has also dealt with chronic physical issues himself for a long time.
Right, the essential tremor.
Yeah, diagnosed around the year 2000, it's a neurological condition, causes his body and voice to quiver sometimes. He first noticed the shaking way back when he was performing with Second City, only 26 years old.
Wow. And that diagnosis, it really speaks volumes about his professional resilience, doesn't it?
Absolutely. He's had to adapt his working environment to manage it. Reports say he does print interviews lying down, televised ones in a special high-backed chair sometimes.
Yet, despite that, his creative output has only accelerated and moved into increasingly demanding, complex subjects. It's pretty incredible.
And speaking of health and resilience, that heart attack anecdote from 2018 while he was filming Vice, that's just an unbelievable piece of meta-satire you couldn't even write into a movie.
The irony is just immense. Filming a movie about Dick Cheney, a guy famous for his multiple heart issues, bypass surgeries.
And McKay has a heart attack during production.
Unbelievable.
And he credited the intense research he did into Cheney's health for the film.
With helping him recognize his own symptoms instantly.
Yeah. Getting him to the hospital before any permanent damage occurred. The information he sought out to make art literally saved his life.
And he delivered the perfect punchline for it later, didn't he? Being quoted saying, "Either Christian Bale or Dick Cheney just saved my life."
Lips. It's the highest form of comedic self-reference. The director absorbing the material so deeply it actually alters his own reality. Just incredible.
Beyond his huge film career, his presence in audio, in podcasting, has also been pretty consistent. Shows his interest in non-visual storytelling, too.
Right. He hosted that science comedy podcast, surprisingly awesome for a bit.
Yeah, and produced several really deeply researched documentary podcast series.
Things like Broken, Jeffrey Epstein, Broken, Seeking Justice, and Death at the Wing that one investigated those mysterious deaths among young basketball players in the 80s and 90s.
Really compelling stuff. And later he hosted Death on the Lot, focusing on celebrity deaths in 1950s Hollywood.
So his commitment to investigative, long-form journalism, even in audio, just further proves this dedication he has to revealing hidden truths and, again, systemic failures. It's all part of the same project. #tag outro.
So, okay, what does this entire, wildly productive, increasingly politically focused career, what does it all mean for you, the listener? We've traced, I think, a pretty coherent line.
Yeah, there's a definite thread.
From Keith, the obnoxious audience member, heckling hosts on SNL, all the way to the director who uses cinematic satire and now direct funding to challenge the most entrenched power structures we have in finance, government, and climate policy.
The central thread, I think, is that unwavering anti-establishment critique. But the genius of McKay's unique storytelling model, it's the way he uses these hyper-accessible formats.
Like what?
Viral videos, broad ensemble comedies, big Netflix features loaded with A-list movie stars.
Yeah.
He uses those to smuggle in these really complex critiques.
Right. He gets the mass audience in the door with the promise of laughter and famous faces.
And then, bam, he delivers a devastating research lesson about how things are broken.
He really is a bridge, isn't he?
Yeah.
Between pop culture and political urgency. He taught a whole generation about collateralized debt obligations using Selena Gomez in a bathtub.
Incredible.
And now he's trying to mobilize action on the climate crisis using the urgency of a giant comet strike.
But the tension now is clear, I think. That decision to abandon the serial killer comedy, average height, average build, to focus purely on a climate film, it reflects this growing internal debate, maybe, about the limits of satire itself.
Like, is humor still potent enough when the house is truly actually on fire?
Exactly. Is satire the right tool for this moment? Its shift, it really demonstrates the real-world application of the knowledge we've gained about his priorities today. So the provocative thought we want to leave you with is this. Adam McKay is one of the most commercially successful directors of his generation, period. If he is willing to abandon guaranteed hits, prioritize urgent activism by focusing solely on climate collapse, how might that decision start to reshape the future of commercial filmmaking aimed at mass audiences?
That's a huge question.
It raises the fundamental question for the whole industry, maybe.
Yeah.
When you're confronting crises of this magnitude, is satire still the best weapon? Or does the modern moment demand documentation, mobilization, above all else? That's the journey we're all going to be watching McKay embark upon next.
A phenomenal deep dive into just a dynamic and incredibly urgent career. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.